There's no denying that Tom Cruise is the action movie king, at least the action movie king of modern times. He's got several different franchises on his back, some in the making, a fair amount of stinkers here and there. And you can say what you want about him personally, or about the symmetry of his face, but the man's work ethic and commitment to the craft is something that deserves a lot of recognition. And I feel he does get his fair share of accolades, but there's the rare occasion that a performer of this caliber stars in a film that flies under the radar. A film that deserves more recognition and love than it gets, and that's the case with Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow is a film that completely bombed at the box office, but is among Cruise's highest rated movies from both fans and critics. Seemed like it could have been the start to yet another franchise, but it just didn't pick up enough steam. A title change didn't seem to do the trick. The movie had a great concept, great performances, and action. It was everything that Call of Duty Advanced Warfare tried to be.
What you're seeing is Advanced Warfare.
Maybe you've seen this movie, agree with me that it's one of Cruise's best films, or maybe you're happy that it didn't get a sequel. If you are one of those people, this might not be the video for you, and you might be disappointed since there is in fact a sequel announced. However, I do see where some of the complaints from this movie come from. Any movie involving any bit of time travel obviously comes with a fair bit of questions, and Edge of Tomorrow is no different. So I'm gonna try and wrap my head around the time travel, explain it in the simplest terms possible, and explain why Edge of Tomorrow is so unique from other time travel movies. So grab your exosuit, don't get run over by the truck, and let's advance our way into Edge of Tomorrow. So first things first, the alien invasion in the movie doesn't take place in America, so that's pretty cool. I mean, if you just look at our planet, I feel like the odds of aliens either crashing or picking somewhere to land are very high to be somewhere on the Eastern Hemisphere, not just a strangely specific island near the corner of the middle of the Western Hemisphere. Anyways, this movie is actually based on a manga and novel, All You Need Is Kill, by Hiroshi Sakurazaka. I hope I'm saying that right, which is why Tom Cruise's character Cage sets the language to Japanese on his exosuit by accident. It's a cool little nod, and I didn't know that this movie was based on anything, so that's also cool. This movie takes place in 2020, which, yeah, makes sense. This is also the third movie that stars Emily Blunt in which she tries to change the events of the future, so it's not only weird that it happened twice, it's weird that it happened 3 times. One thing that this movie does that separates itself from other Tom Cruise movies is that Tom Cruise isn't the action hero in this one, at least not for a little while. He's not a very likable character, he's happy to let other people do the work for him, so that way he doesn't have to see any action.
I do this to avoid doing that.
And when he does see the field of duty, he's really bad at his job. This movie takes a lot of inspiration from successful movies of the genre and all sorts of genres. There's some Terminator references, Aliens, Starship Troopers, and of course, Groundhog Day. But for me, the one that sticks out is the inspiration it took from Saving Private Ryan. You can see a lot of the similar shots and story beats play out in this opening battle sequence, but it's not just the shots and story, it's the writing as well. It does a great job of building tension. We know there's aliens, but we don't see them until our point of view character does. We feel more in his shoes than most movies like this do, and to have it be somebody who's not trained in combat makes it feel all the more immersive because I, for one, am also not trained in combat. When he drops out of the ship, we get another Tom Cruise scream. But we also see how great the effects are for this movie, and this really does add to the atmosphere of the mission. Kinda reminds me of the opening drop scene in Overlord, except that movie clearly didn't have the same budget that this one did. And he's going through the battlefield and we actually see what it is they're fighting. It's no wonder why they've only won a single battle against them. These things are terrifying, and they seem absolutely, like, near impossible to kill. Even the super suits don't seem to help them very much.
What you're seeing is Advanced Warfare.
It seems at first that everything that has been set up, all the characters and heroes, is all for nothing because they all die like right away. But then Tom Cruise dies as well, and we're only about 20 minutes into the movie, so what happens next? He wakes back up. You see, I didn't watch this movie knowing anything about it other than it's a Tom Cruise movie. I didn't watch any trailers or know anything about it. So when this, I guess I'll call it a twist for me, happened, I was actually pretty excited. The Groundhog Day style of storytelling is just so compelling to me. It's also a device used in many different stories, but there's a reason why it's been used so many times, because it's so interesting and a fun way to see how different you can make things by going at them again, and how similar things are despite your best efforts. It also got me thinking about this sorta subgenre, and if Groundhog Day was the first story to do it, and it turns out it's not. The first use of this live the day over again style story was in a 1915 Russian novel called Strange Life of Ivan Oskin, which isn't about only reliving the day, but his whole life. But Groundhog Day was a huge reason why this device is used in so many stories, so a lot of people refer to these stories as a Groundhog Day type of movie. Anyways, back to the movie. Any story that uses this Groundhog Day template has a tough task ahead of it because A, it has to make sense for your story, and B, it has to be enjoyable to see the same day over and over again. This movie achieves both of these things. The aliens are responsible for the time jumps, which is a very concrete answer that is explained in the story, and this movie balances out all of the day do-overs with humor and action. Does it do something that these stories don't usually do? Not really, but it does have the most fun it can with this concept. These types of scenes can get very annoying and, well, repetitive if not done carefully, and this is where the pacing of these scenes is so important. It gets us to root for Cage because everything we want to tell him to do, he does. From an unlikable character to somebody trying his best to warn and save everyone, it's already great character development. It also becomes obvious that he's been through many more loops than we've seen. We only actually see him live out the full day like twice, and then after that we usually pick up where he last died, so we can see him actually progress the story further. Every time we redo a scene that doesn't service the story, it's for comedic or action purposes. This makes the tone of the movie very balanced because all of this evens out. It never feels too silly or too serious. This movie knows what it is and it really nails the tone that it's going for. When he meets up with Rita and she explains that everything that happened to him also happened to her, the story starts coming together and we get a cool little training montage where Tom Cruise finally does become the action hero.
What you're seeing is advanced warfare.
But every time he gets seriously hurt, she kills him to reset the day. But this doesn't reset her day, or does it? Is there just like an infinite amount of timelines where she just shoots him and life continues on and everybody's like, whoa, why did she just kill him? What happens to you when you stop that version of the timeline? Do you stop existing? Does your consciousness transfer to a different you in a different timeline that you just forgot about? Is that what deja vu is? Anyways, when enough of these loops go by and we finally see these two make it off the beach, they approach a farmhouse. Now, remember earlier when I said that Emily Blunt has starred in 3 movies about trying to change the future? Well, this very farmhouse is the exact same farmhouse from one of those movies called Looper. I bet Emily Blunt was saying,
if I had a nickel for every time I was doomed by a puppet, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
When they get to the farmhouse, things definitely slow down in the movie, which does feel purposeful, but it's also a time in the film that we feel very ambiguous as to how long it's been and how many loops Cage has actually been through. She says that she saw somebody named Hendrix die 300 times, but it almost seems like it's been either the same amount or more for him. He says that eventually they start talking and she goes over some personal things with him, but we never saw any of that. This portion of the movie does a nice little switcheroo of point of view characters because now we're seeing everything happening for the first time right along with Rita. He tells her that no matter what happens, this is where she dies and there's no escaping it. Cage has difficulty following through with the mission because of his new feelings for Rita. It's like he's trying to get the best of both worlds, but having to choose between one or the other. The world or the person that you're falling in love with. And that makes things even more interesting. At the low point of the movie, we see that all of this resetting has taken its toll on Cage. He doesn't ask for Rita's help, he doesn't save everybody he can, and he's resorted to going through with the mission. This is, at the same time, the best and worst case scenario. Sure, he's saving the world by doing this, but he's also sacrificing his own morals and feelings for it. These decisions are what makes these stories so compelling. It's easy for the audience to say, well, just follow through with the mission. But if we care enough to want to see the character get what they want while also achieving the mission, then I think you have a very successful story. And this story, for me, accomplishes what it sets out to do in this regard. The third act is usually where these types of movies fall apart for me, but I think that it works here. We get to be more in the shoes of Cage once again, and when he has the blood transfusion, we feel that the stakes are higher than ever. There's a way to kill the enemy, but the enemy is such a grand threat that we still don't know if they're ever going to be able to accomplish that mission. But he gets the trust of his companions that we've seen all movie, so that way they can go on one last mission together. It's like they're some
kinda Suicide Squad.
Immediately, the mission goes wrong, which doesn't bode well. Cage is injured, and without his suit, it's seeming like the mission isn't gonna work out. While some part of me knows that this is all on purpose, and that they're eventually all gonna accomplish this mission, it doesn't change the feeling of the movie. That this was all for nothing, and that their task really is too much to handle. The reason why third acts of these movies fall apart is because I really don't like the whole hive mind way to kill a species, and I still don't, but I weirdly think that it makes a lot of sense here, and if it weren't extremely overdone, I'd actually like it. After they do achieve the mission and blow up the Omega, we get the ultra happiest ending possible, which makes sense for a summer action movie, but the original ending was, I think, a bit better. In the original ending, as they're approaching Paris, one of the soldiers says that the mimics already know that they're coming because he is now the one in the time loop, having accidentally killed an alpha the first time around, and the movie ends, setting up Robin Hood to be the one to carry everything out in a potential sequel. We would have seen the entire fight go down the first time around, but then when he kills the alpha, we reset in the helicopter. There's actually still evidence of this plotline in the movie itself, because when they get to Paris, the mimics do know that they're coming, and it's not ever explained how they know. In the movie's ending, though, he just gets to live a long, happy life now as a changed man, tell Rita about all the stuff that they've been through, fall in love again, and that's kinda it. I also saw people questioning why he didn't wake up the same day again, but I'm assuming it's because this was the last day that wasn't interrupted by the Omega. Now that all the Omega's magic time travel f***ery has ended, it resets him to the last day before everything was changed by the Omega in the first place. The aliens themselves are incredibly interesting and unique for a movie like this. For one, like I've mentioned, they're terrifying. It's no wonder why they need to try and kill these things, but with everything presented in the story, the aliens are far more complex than they initially seem. For one, we know that their motivation is to take over the planet, which, okay, sure, but if these aliens come from outer space and the Omega has this time resetting power, this indicates that for these beings, time is a fifth dimension. Just like whoever placed that 3D box in Interstellar. These beings are intelligent enough to listen to their hive mind, and the hive mind is smart enough to plant different ideas in Cage's head as to where it is, and to strategize this war by letting them win in Verdun, only to launch a sneak attack on them when they put their full force at one area and go over to take a different one. This is an incredibly complex system of creatures, and while the movie provides us with enough information, I can't help but wonder if the sequel, or potential sequel, is going to dive into more about these creatures and their origins, or if the second movie is ever going to actually happen at all. If he did it with Top Gun, he can do it again with Edge of Tomorrow. Those are all my thoughts on Edge of Tomorrow. I think that this is one of those absolutely fantastic summer blockbuster movies. It knows what it is, it delivers what it promises, has great writing and characters, and doesn't take itself too seriously. I'd actually love to see a sequel for this someday, but if this is all we ever get, it's a damn good movie. I'm going 8.5 out of 10. Special shout out to all my channel members. Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought on this movie. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. If this video gets to 2,000 likes in the first week of posting, I'll do another Tom Cruise movie that's kind of similar to this. I think it's called Oblivion. Wait a minute. Yeah, Oblivion. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah.